Being an amazing product marketing leader doesn't happen by chance. It happens by habit. Product marketing certified leadership has been built on the back of decades worth of experience from some of the world's best known brands with one goal in mind: helping you be the best leader you can be. Crammed with real life case studies, over 12 hours worth of content, templates, exams, and more, this course is everything you need to lead with authority, confidence, influence, and innovation. Every piece of material within the 7 modules and 29 chapters has been vetted, tested, and approved by senior level product marketers from companies like Amazon, Uber, and HubSpot, serving up game-changing insights throughout. By the time you've wrapped up the final module, you'll be able to define what it takes to be a great product marketing leader, build and scale your team, understand how to successfully manage your existing team, use methods for leveraging data, know how to become the voice of the customer, understand how teams work cross-functionally, and improve your strategic thinking. The beauty of the course is you'll have the freedom to work your way through the modules at a pace to suit you. It's 100% self-paced. You'll even get lifetime access to the curriculum, paving the way for refresher sessions forevermore. Visit productmarketingalliance.com to get leadership certified and spearhead your journey to the top.
Hi everyone, I hope you're enjoying the Product Marketing Festival so far. Just before I hand over to the wonderful Yannick, who is our next speaker, I want to remind you that this session has a live Q&A at the end. So make sure you're asking your questions in the comment section of the video. I'll be putting them to Yannick after his awesome talk. Over to you.
Awesome, thanks a bunch, Rose. Can you hear me? Am I coming out loud and clear?
Yep, loud and clear.
Awesome. Okay, great. Awesome. Well, hey, welcome everyone. My name is Yannick Podar. I am the Global Product Marketing Director at PayFit. And on today's talk, I'll be sharing from product launches to predictable revenue. So just a couple words about me. I'm American, grew up in the Washington, D.C. area, also lived in San Francisco. I'm also French, and I'm also African from a small little country called Togo. So quite international background. I'm also a former product marketing lead at LinkedIn in SF. And today I'm a current global product marketing director in a hyper-growth startup based in Paris. And so for some of you who love books too, I'm a big book reader. So if you have any recommendations, feel free to send them my way. And on some of the fun times, I like to spend some time as a professor in a couple of business schools. So teaching on strategy, leadership, product marketing. And for today's topic, we're really going to discuss from product launches to predictable revenue. And I guess starting with, why this topic is important, as Simon Sinek always says, to start with why. Well, I frequently, share that launch strategy can make or break your business. Now, it sounds kind of extreme, but it really is. You have a lot of studies out there, one by McKinsey Consulting, that estimates that over 25% of total revenue and profits can come from new product launches. And so essentially launches are core to every business success. It's like, if you get this correctly, every time you introduce a new product to market or you open a new market, that has the potential to increase quite a lot of revenue. However, what's really interesting is that over 75 to 95%, these are the stats here, of new product launches introduced to the market fail. And that will obviously depend on your type of market, your country, locations, and so on. But I thought that was really, really interesting to see how important and impactful it can be. However, how unlikely it is to be successful, or at least looks like a lot of folks or a lot of companies still have not cracked the code. Couple reasons really quickly here, super high level, is one is the inability to collect the right data and analyze it to be able to make the best strategy in terms of product pricing, positioning in the market. Another one is inability or lack of resources to not only create demand, but to sustain it over time. Because it's one thing to launch a product and to get instant reaction and traction. It's another thing to sustain it over quarters, over years into the market. And last but not least, especially on the B2B side, it's poor enablement of your sales and customer success team that are obviously key to ensuring the conversion rates. So that's kind of really what you can find online, and some of what other folks are saying in terms of why launches fail. But I want to take a bit of a step back and kind of talk about, well, let's define what a product launch actually is so that we're all on the same page. A product launch refers to a business's planned and coordinated effort to debut a new product to the market and make that product generally available for purchase. However, a product launch, although it serves it serves many purposes for an organization, one of them being giving customers the opportunity to buy a product, it also helps the organization build anticipation for the product, gather valuable feedback from early users, and create momentum in the industry so that you can be recognized in your sector. And that's from our friends at Product Plan. Now, the thing is that a lot of people think actually that small businesses are the ones that typically tend to fail, but actually even large organizations fail plenty of time too. The only difference is that they typically have a lot more resources and financial backing to keep launching again and again. And just sharing a couple of cases here, I might be kind of dating myself here, but the case of Sony PlayStation 3, that lost over $3 billion in sale for their PS3 consoles back in the years. And this is a company that's international, it's absolutely global, tons of resources, and they still messed up a launch back in those days. The reason is, well, a couple of things. They had built a revolutionary product that was, had Blu-ray technology that was ahead of its time back in 2006. It was way ahead of their competitors in terms of Xbox 360, Nintendo Wii. They just had this amazing technology. The problem is that they had risked losing money on every unit and thinking that they can recoup some of the sales on the actual PlayStation game sales. The problem is that they got their COGS incorrect. When you're looking at a new product launch, a very important thing is to understand the cost of goods sold. And there basically it was taking them about $800 to build a model, and they were selling it for about $500. So you can see that there's already a bit of a mismatch in terms of the overall business strategy for this launch. In addition, customers wanted very affordable, easy to use online solution, which didn't necessarily rely on Blu-ray DVD. On top of that, game developers, so if you're working with anyone that is supplying any part of your business model to be able to have a final product to your customers, well, game developers were actually building products for multiple consoles. And so they weren't necessarily leveraging just the Blu-ray technology just for PlayStation, because they had to work with also Xbox and PCs and so on. In addition, there was a lot of market shifts that went away from DVDs and Blu-ray technology to online streaming, hence Netflix and a lot of online games and so on. As a result, they absolutely catapulted, and that's just one case. There's also the case of Amazon Fire, which was the same situation. A lot of people don't remember this at all, but Amazon had launched a product, a cell phone, to be able to compete against Android and iOS. But that launch also failed back in 2014. They launched in 2014 and failed in 2015 and completely discontinued the product. The reason why I'm sharing this is because it's important to know that although you can have all the resources in the world, you can still fail a launch. However, a lot of companies clearly do it right? And of course, Amazon is still there. They're one of the best businesses, of course, in the world, as well as Sony, who now have launched their PlayStation 4 and then now PlayStation 5. But you can see here, there's a lot of also brands here that really get it right, from a variety of industries, from Airbnb to an Okta to MailChimp and so on. And of course, everyone knows that Apple's famous strategy of international event to announce your products, your release date with pre-sales, and you're getting that feedback as well. You're optimizing the product as best as you can. Then comes general availability to everyone, and then you collect feedback, you build, you improve for the next year. This is why I mentioned that launch strategy can make or break your business. And 29% of startups fail just because they ran out of cash. If you are allocating a lot of resources to build a product and then you launch it and you don't recoup the investments through a positive ROI, then of course you can be in financial trouble. What's clear is that launches are complex. You have a model where you kind of launch and you pray, you see what happens. And you have a model where you're testing, you're learning, strategically, and you're trying to find your way to create predictable revenue with every launch that you make. And so what's clear is that there are some that are not effective when you have kind of just an emotional gut feeling, let's go, let's do it fast, let's get out there, without any kind of market analysis or monitoring on the ROI or having the right cross-functional partners in the room. And in another section, you're more data driven, you're getting customer feedback, you're getting sales feedback, you have a cross-functional alignment, you're doing market analysis. You can already see that there's different ways of approaching a launch. And of course, there's also everything in between. Now, predictable revenue is a term that came from Aaron Ross. If you guys ever read the book, it's a great book, Predictable Revenue. It's basically a framework that creates consistency year over year and provides business growth based on a formula, not necessarily a kind of, in this case, he says last minute hustling and guessing, but that's kind of extreme. But basically, not kind of a last minute in a hurry to get something out. Essentially, you work your way to creating predictable revenue, to being able to predict how much revenue a business will generate constantly year over year, quarter over quarter, based on different types of launches in your different markets. And so your job, or I should say our job here, is to build the right product for the right reasons, assemble the right team and allocate the right resources, crunch the numbers to make sure we can create that profitable experience, enable the company to launch in a sequence, I'll talk about that in a minute, and monitor performance to get feedback and make adjustments along the way. Now, key takeaways here in this presentation. I know we only have about under half an hour, so there's definitely a lot of things that I want to share with you, but the key takeaways is to understand the strategic weight of the launch strategy, to be aware of the top go-to-market mistakes that I've seen companies make across the world, whether I was living in DC, in San Francisco, now in Paris, also had a stint in London. So I kind of had an understanding of different types of businesses, international, local, and how they're working. And then the third point is to learn the 10 steps to really go from product launches to predictable revenue, with, of course, real world examples so that it's as practical as possible, and some resources that you can leverage after this talk. So why am I presenting this topic? Just a couple of things. PayFit is just a B2B SaaS platform, really focused on HR tech to automate payroll and several HR features and activities for small businesses. We've been growing incredibly fast across multiple countries in Europe, over 5,000 companies and 5 countries. And of course, launches became my #1 priority. That's why I spent so much time understanding how to unlock growth and scale across markets, because we were just growing so fast and we couldn't just keep reinventing the wheel with every single market. We had to find a playbook that would work and that would help us scale internationally. And this is what the company has done in the past 5 years, growing incredibly fast. So this presentation is for VPs, for product marketers on the ground managing the launches. It's for cross-functional partners, and it's for companies at all sizes to really benefit from. A couple of things before I go into some of the details is that take what you need, throw away the rest. Every business is going to be very different. I won't guarantee you have success with everything that I say, but I definitely have a couple points that you can use from this presentation that will help you improve and evolve your overall launch strategy. So in a very quick way, what I want to share is just kind of the 10 different mistakes I've seen people make. One is you're building the wrong product for the wrong reasons, right? There's a very big difference between building a nice to have versus a must have. And that already, if we fail there, the launch will have some slim chances of success. The second thing is poor resource allocation. So since we know now we have a must have we need to create, sometimes we don't allocate the right amount of media to really get the scale and awareness that we need across the different regions. We potentially don't have the right team on the board, and we potentially have not allocated the right amount of resource in terms of engineers and product managers to be able to build something very strong. Third is not having a specific launch goal or KPI, as in, is this a 10K launch? Is it a 100K launch? Is it $1 million launch? Is it a $10 million launch? What are we aiming for here? Because based on this type of launch, the way we approach it will be very different. Also, another mistake I see some B2B businesses make, and even B2C side, is that not launching in a sequence format. I kind of see a launch as a 3-act play, where you have your pre-launch, where you're interacting, you're introducing, you're building the anticipation, You have a full blown out launch, but then you also have a post launch to kind of follow through, where actually a lot of the revenue is also generated in that post launch sequence. And so a lot of times we just launched it and then that's it. And that's not the end of the game. That's actually really when it starts. The other thing is not having a business plan. So if we know the type of launch we're looking for, if it's a 100K launch, $1 million launch, then we need to kind of backtrack to understand, well, okay, well, how many leads do we need to generate? How many demos do we need to have? How many customers do we need to create, right? Need to acquire, and how much revenue do we need to bring? We kind of need to work backwards. Now, it doesn't mean you need to spend, a whole quarter putting together a business plan, but you do need to have a one-page kind of snapshot showing exactly what is it you're trying to achieve and how you're going to get there, so that everyone can sign off on. Poor pricing strategy. There's a difference between pricing for growth, and pricing for profitability. They don't always happen at the same time. And sometimes you can try to balance it out to the best of your abilities, but there's a small nuance between pricing for acquisition and pricing for profitability. And we'll talk about that in a couple minutes. The other piece is wrong segmentation. I always, mentioned, with my team and also with the leadership team in general, is that there's a difference between assets and liabilities. You have some segments that will just be horrible. They take long to acquire. Once we acquire them and they're part of the business, they tend to be very complicated and complex to work with. They tend to be unhappy, they leave, and they give bad review, right? And then you have on the other extreme end, a customer who's happy, who onboards fast, who stays longer, who shares the product to all of their friends. And that's a very different situation of an asset versus a liability. Someone draining the business, someone increasing the leverage and the presence of the business. The other thing is cross-functional buy-in. One of the mistakes I hear sometimes companies make or do is that it's product marketing launching or it's sales launching, but actually a launch is a cross-functional organization across multiple teams of sales, customer success, product marketing, your operational teams that are going to be very joined together to be able to make this a success. And whenever I see a launch team that has only one department, I already know that they're going to have some mistakes when they go into the field. Either the sales team didn't buy in, so they're discounting it or not selling it. Either customer success is not prepared and they don't have the training assets to be able to answer tickets when they arise. Either product didn't take it seriously because they didn't believe in it, so they did something very fast that's not actual scalable. And so you have, of course, marketing with targeting and so on. So if you don't have the right players in the room, you might get in trouble. And then no risk mitigation. And last but not least, no governance team to be able to manage and monitor the ROI. So now that we know kind of, all these different things that can happen, well, then what you need to do is just kind of reverse it and create a system and a process that helps you make sure that you cover all your elements. And that's exactly what we've done here. So the 10 steps is to go from product launches to predictable revenue. Step 1 is to define the pain you want to solve. And for that, it's building a hypothesis, as in conducting initial research, benchmark, and so on, analyzing the competition, analyzing internal data, speaking with cross-functional partners to be able to build an idea of what we're trying to do. Second is validate it. So you actually need to go out there, get out the building, talk to potential customers or prospects or existing customers and cross-functional partners to be able to validate this opportunity and potentially even get your first sell as a test, as a beta customer, paying beta customer. And then at some point you have to make a call. You have to trust your data and you have to go and do it. Step 2 is assemble the team. For every situation, especially in B2B setting, you're going to tend to have your product team, your marketing counterparts, your sales team, your customer success, and your ops. Marketing builds a product, builds the product. Marketing leads the go-to-market strategy, the different acquisition channels. Sales plays a monumental role in outgoing sales and partnership strategies. Customer success also leverages and adopts, make sure your current customers adopt the new product or new feature, and then your ops teams helps you crunch the numbers. And if you don't have the right team at the beginning, you might be creating an issue in the long term. So one, I think it's very important to determine who needs to be part of the conversation as quickly as possible. I typically, like I mentioned, you have your cross-functional counterparts. Second is schedule a meeting to present what you found. So we found that segment A has a potential massive pain point that if we solve can help generate X amount of revenue and at the same time increase customer satisfaction by X, Y, Z, right? You have to build your business case and share it. The other thing is you want to then specifically ask for resources. Like I need, 3 salespeople, like a couple of SDRs to be able to specifically go test this thing, scale this thing, or I need product marketers or engineers to be able to help build this for 2-3 months so we can test this out. Whatever it is, you have to specifically ask for it, or else you won't get the resources. 4 is to, once you've assembled a team, you align on objectives. Are we trying to improve conversion rates? Are we trying to increase margins? Are we trying to improve customer satisfaction? Are we trying to enter a new market? And then you draft your plan, you kick off, and you get to work. 3 is to determine the goal. No launch is created equal. You typically have big business, big bet launches, opening a new market, launching a whole new product. That is an epic launch, how we call it. You have major launches, which is sometimes just a major improvement to a product that exists, or major reinforcements. Or 3 is just like a minor launch, really focused on features, a couple upgrades, a couple adoption plays, and then you determine the goal, because they're not all the same. An epic launch is going to be resourced very differently than a major launch, than a minor launch. 4 is build the minimum profitable product. Now, minimum profitable product, what I mean is, regardless of where you start, you will need to make sure you've built a product that is a must-have, not nice to have, because you're already doomed if you build a nice to have. Second is to determine the right pricing strategy. Are we going for growth? Are we going for profitability? If we're going for both, a bit of both, that's going to be very important to set out right from the beginning. And then you want to build something that can get fast to market as quickly as possible, right? We don't want to spend a whole year to build and then launch and you realize no one wants it, or that you missed the opportunity. And so the objective is really to make sure that we build the right decision based on growth and profitability. 5 is to build the business plan. And I'll give you the recap as well. 5 is to build the business plan. So now that we know what we want to do, well, let's crunch the numbers. How many leads do we need to get to be able to get the amount of demos we need, to be able to get the number of customers we need, to be able to generate the amount of revenue we need? Which traction channels are we going to use? Are we using inbound, outbound, partnerships, pricing strategy, payback strategy? What are we expecting to be at, and profitability? And you don't need to spend 6 months, 9 months putting this together. You don't need a 20-page document. I mean, just a 1-page or summary of what we need to do is good to go. And I think a lot of people spend way too much time here, and they need to make it as simple as possible. The reason why I mention a lot about growth and profitability is because aiming for growth only can help you acquire more customers, but potentially with negative margins, like we've seen with the Sony case at the beginning, which also means that profitability decreases with more customers as you go. And also, it's not sustainable. You're burning through cash. You're acquiring customers that are negative margin, which is very, very dangerous. The other thing is, on the other side, is profitability. So you're acquiring more customers with positive margins, and so profitability increases as you get more customers, and that's sustainable, that's scaling. And so pricing, we can talk about pricing for a whole 10-day session, but pricing is key because it can either put you in a growing but not profitable example, in a profitable but not growing, or profitable and growing. And so growing but not profitable means that you're selling in high volumes but not making a ton of revenue. You're selling in high volumes and making a lot of revenue, but you're not making profits. The other situation is that you're profitable, but you're not growing fast, which means you're not selling a lot, but every sale you make counts. And then the third piece is a holy grail, where you're growing fast and you're profitable at the same time. And so typically you have 3 dimensions in your pricing strategy. You have your pricing model, as in determining what is going to be, is it going to be a dynamic pricing, fixed pricing plus user fee, and so on. Pricing unit, as in what is the actual price number? Is it $49 base price plus 5 user per month? What is that actual number? And then 3 is, what's the upsell strategy to be able to create more value and capture that value from your existing customers, right? And that's where you have add-ons and you have continuation plan for upsell strategy. And at the end, you have multiple examples, but you have one here that's kind of like Slack, where you have your free situation, you have your standard, your plus, your enterprise grid, but all of this is already baked in to create upsell strategy within the product portfolio, product and pricing strategy. And then, of course, you have to sit down and predict, okay, well, if we generate X amount of leads and amount of demos and so on, with our specific conversion rates that we see today, we can kind of see this on the acquisition side and kind of see this on the upsell side, and then let's go test it out. And that's why it's important to have your ops team here, because if you're not someone who has access to some of these numbers, you need them on the team to be able to help with that. Step 6 is build the right mitigation plan. Now, it doesn't mean you need to have a whole, fleshed out plan, but you do need to answer a couple questions. What if product performance fails? What do we do then? Just have a couple points, bullet points on your strategy there. What if sales doesn't convert? What are the quick things that we need to do to adjust? And what if competition counters? These are just kind of some easy things very quickly. You want to have bullet points down so that people know as soon as an issue like that happens, you have something you can go to so you can then pull out your create a much more thought out plan. 7 is what we all know is building the launch assets, the landing page, the newsletters, the product videos in all your different languages, German, French, Spanish, English, all these different things you have at your social media campaigns. 8 is training your sales teams to have sales, customer, and also your leadership teams to be able to enable the launch. The reason why this is important is because when I see a launch happen and your CEO didn't write a message and your employees didn't share on social media, I mean, you're missing so much on a network effect that can scale much farther than a acquisition media play. And sometimes people underestimate the network effect that you can have when you're leveraging your existing employees to launch a product. And so it's important to train, to have the right assets, and to create that feedback loop so that right away you can understand what you need to improve for your product as soon as there's sales or loss of sales. 9 is launching a sequence format. So I'm not going to go into the details. Of course, we're coming to the end, but it's launching in a sequence and not an event. It's a 3-act play. You have your pre-launch, warm up, introduction, interaction with your organization, interaction with your market. You have your full-blown launch, and then you have your post-launch strategy as well. And then last but not least, you monitor, take notes, and adjust. And so typically, like I mentioned, you have multiple people in the room, at least 5, to be able to orchestrate this launch successfully. To give you a couple of examples, at PayFit, we have launched a steering committee where we have global product, global growth, finance, and your local team, because we're launching in multiple countries. And we always just sit down and look at how we're performing on all our key launches, right? We have our epic, our majors, our minors, we have sponsors, we have launch leads. How do we ensure the success of this project? And if it's not working, how do we improve it along the way? We have clear roles for exec sponsors, clear roles for our launch PMM lead or our PMM lead. And then we have bi-weekly kind of sitting down, seeing how the project is going. And of course, we have a project tracker to be able to see how the project is going. And last but not least, we have our Slack channel so we can be very fast on interactions. And so with that, these are the 10 steps. You have define your pain point you want to solve, assemble your right team, determine the goal and type of launch, build the minimum profitable product, build the business plan, build the risk mitigation plan, build your launch assets, train your team, launch in a sequence format, and monitor ROI so you can take notes. And you rinse and repeat over and over again to a point where basically, if you get this right, you're no longer guessing, you're being precise, you're being effective, and every launch is calculated. There's a plan, there's a bit of a backup plan, there's a sequence strategy, and you have a cross-functional team that's managing the monitoring the ROI of your portfolio of launches. And if you keep doing this, you'll improve the next launch and improve the next launch after that until you crack the code for profitable launches at your company. So that is it. I also have a small little gift at the end, so you have plenty of resources you can go through. Whether you are looking to get into some articles, some books, some podcasts, some blogs by consulting firms, or even courses by PMA. There's a bunch of stuff there, so feel free to go into some of these and learn as much as you can. And also feel free to reach out to me, of course, if you have any questions or if I can help in any way. But one thing I want to mention is Rome wasn't built in a day, so take your time and figure it out how to do it step by step along the way. So there you go. Thank you very much for that. Thank you, Rose, and thank you for everyone for listening. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or directly on my email, and hope to talk to you soon.
Thanks, Yannick. That was an awesome session filled with a lot of key takeaways and pro tips. So really appreciate it. We've got a few questions and we've got a couple of minutes to run through them. So the first question is from Daniel, and he is asking, how do you integrate market and language knowledge in each product launch process?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that well. Can you repeat? How do you?
Yeah, so Daniel is asking, how do you integrate market and language knowledge in each product launch process?
Market language. If I understand the question clearly, I think during your your beta phase, and even before that, when you're looking to put together a must-have versus a nice-to-have, I think there's a lot of conversations you need to have with your potential prospects to understand what pain are they actually having. You need to understand your buyer persona, as in what are they trying to accomplish, what are the needs that they have, and what's going to help them get there. And as you're interviewing your different personas, you start to listen to some trends in the words they use, and that language is going to be infused not only in your product, but also in your marketing campaign and even your sales pitch decks. So if I understood your question correctly, how do you infuse market language, at least for prospects? That's how you would do it. And of course, when you're looking at analysis, I mean, I think you can do benchmark from what already exists in terms of the different competitors, in terms of different products. You can look at third-party reviews as well. If you're launching a whole new product, you've never done it, all these different things and sources out there. And of course, use LinkedIn. There's plenty of people who've already done something you want to do. Reach out to people, ask for advice, get some different examples, and then create your own.
Great. And I'm not sure the audience can hear me, so if you could repeat the question and then answer, that would be super helpful.
Okay. Okay.
What is your view on a closed pricing strategy, aka, you know, running a demo and then letting your client know about the pricing strategy?
Yeah, I'm having a bit of time hearing, but your question is the pricing strategy. What's the view on the pricing strategy?
On a closed pricing strategy. So not having the client aware of the price until after you've gone through the demo.
I see. What is the view of, so the question is, what is my view on a closed pricing strategy, which means that actually pricing is not disclosed on a website? To be honest, I don't necessarily think there's a right or wrong here. I think it's important to be very in touch with what's happening in the market and what's happening in your specific region and culture, because sometimes you'll see all your competitors have released prices and sometimes they don't. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, but you do need to realize that, especially when you're looking at Challenge Your Sale, which is a great book that came out, you know that a lot of the research of prospects are done way before they even contact you. So it's great for you to be able to, to actually show as much as possible. If you don't want to show numbers, then you do need to show very well the product value and the ROI, like having an ROI calculator so that they can see how much they can save and then ask for a demo. But you do need to make sure that they have some sort of a number in their head even before they get to you. It's either a number of price or either it's a number of how much they can save based on the solution. And that already creates a much better situation, because if they come to you and they have to ask for a demo and they don't want to do that, then you've already missed a chance of having a conversation on price.
Absolutely. And we're just about out of time, but the final one is, do you have any great book recommendations?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on what you're looking for sure. I think for an organization, I like the book Challenge Your Sale. It's definitely a great book that helps salespeople understand how to sell in a more consultative way, how to be able to actually understand who is going to be the person in the back that's going to influence you and help you close a deal or bring in a new customer. I like the book Predictable Revenue by Aaron Ross. That really helps you understand the different types of model. And then last but not least, there's From Zero to 100 Million. It's a book by Mark Roberge from HubSpot. He's no longer at HubSpot, but he wrote a book. I think it's just called The Sales Acceleration Formula. And it talks about how they went from 0 to 100 million in a couple of years. It's a fascinating book, so I definitely urge you to read that book. And it talks about inbound, outbound partnerships. Really, really cool book. So there you go. Those are my three options there.
Some great options, and I just want to thank you again. There's some lovely feedback and comments, so I definitely recommend heading on over and checking those out, Yannick. And yeah, thanks again for joining us.
Awesome. Thank you, Rose. Thank you, Product Marketing Alliance. Take care.